Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan. I am in my pajamas, and this is Drawing in Pajamas. This is our first video on the channel, and what we're doing, we're going to break down the barriers that prevent us from being better artists or learning how to draw and doing those things too. And everyone has different barriers, right? A lot of people's barriers are, oh man, I'm just not good enough, or oh, I want to get started drawing, but I'm not naturally talented. My barrier is that I like to be comfortable, and if I'm not comfortable, it's harder for me to get motivation to draw, which is why this channel is called Drawing in Pajamas, because we're going to be nice and comfy and chill and draw in our pajamas. So, to start off the channel, I want to do the most basic art school exercise you can ever do. This is for people who have never drawn before or are interested in drawing, but don't know how to improve or really get started doing it legit. Um, it and when I say legit, yes, it can totally still be for fun and be your hobby. But I'm talking about when you sit down and you're like, okay, I actually want to be able to learn to sit down and draw something naturalistically or create really realistic renderings, or I want to improve. So the exercise we're going to do today is the self-portrait. This is something that every single art class will make you do at least once. So we're going to do it through a step-by-step process. Most people think people can just go and suddenly draw and it's this natural talent. There is a science to it, soft science, mostly psychology and perception, but there is a science to it, practices to it, techniques to it that can all be taught. And I'm actually going to teach you how to do this self-portrait step through a step-by-step process. But again, since this channel is all about breaking down barriers, let's talk about some of the barriers that you may face when you're drawing. The biggest one, especially when drawing portraits, is going to be your symbol system. So what the heck is a symbol system? Well, I bet if I asked you to draw a portrait right now and you've never drawn before in your life, you would make, oop, my brush is too big there. You would make a big oval. In fact, I think it would be more rickety. Maybe the oils like the ovals, you're pressing down really hard. There we go. And you make these giant lemon-shaped eyeballs with really pointy corners in the eyes. Maybe they're different sizes. Maybe one's higher up than the other. You make a triangle for the nose with the nostrils shown as big dark ovals. I call this pig nose. You draw a straight line for the lips, and the top lip and bottom lip are the same size, connected, heavily outlined. The irises of the eyes are way too big. They have little pinprick pupils. No neck is drawn, no shading is drawn, and you're missing the rest of the skull. The top of the portrait only represents the top of the forehead. Let's just say that you remember to include eyebrows. You'll probably do them as two little lines. So the reason you draw this way, and just about everybody draws this way who haven't started their drawing practice, is because you know that communicates a face. And as you were learning to draw as a child, you figured out that if you drew it this way, people would be able to read that as a human face, even though it doesn't look like one in a photograph. This is the same skill set that you learn to use language. So we understand if it looks like this, sorry, that's a really messed up one, that someone's going to read that as an eye. And this easy to draw, it's quick to draw, and it communicates clearly. It's the same thing as I know if I see an A, that's going to be an A. And if I see all of these different letters put together, that will equal a word, and people will understand what that word means. The way that we draw these features is just like letters. It's just you were using symbols like letters rather than actually drawing what you view as an eye, as a nose, and a mouth. So what we're going to do as a self-portrait, we're going to use ourselves as reference to figure out what an eye, a nose, and mouth actually looks like. And the key is we're going to be looking at the face constantly rather than trying to draw what we think eyes and nose and mouth looks like. Because in our brain, when we go to draw, we're going to start using symbols rather than drawing what we see because we're not experienced in doing that yet. We were trained to find the quickest way to communicate an eye, nose, and a mouth. That being said, I am going to break it down for you in a series of steps. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to look at ourselves. I have a little self-portrait mirror. I'll actually pull that on my teeny tiny webcam here. It was $7 from dickblick.com. I love it. It's great because it works like a little easel. And I'm going to stare straight at it because we're going to do a straight-on portrait. And the first thing I'm going to do is draw a circle. Now, all of our features do not go in this circle. That's a mistake that I see a lot. Like everybody tries to fit the eyes like a smiley face. Don't do that. This only the eyes, and you'll see why I'm drawing these really big in a moment, and the nose will go inside the circle because this represents the cranium. And as you guys know, you have a mandible, which it allows you to open your mouth. So really just the nose and the eyes will go in that big circle because it represents the cranium, not the whole head. So we'll undo a ways here. I'm just going to erase this little thing that I drew because I'm going to leave that profile skull up there. I think that's helpful. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a line 2/3 of the way down the circle and an eye line, rather. Sorry, I said eye. We're going to draw the eye line 2/3 down the circle and halfway down the entirety of the human head. So halfway here, but 2/3 here. So right about there. And I can actually measure from the top of the head to figure out where the bottom of the chin will go. And that will help me a little bit too in my portrait. The next thing I'm going to do is create a center axis. This will help me with keeping my features somewhat symmetrical. So I'm just going to draw a long, light line in the center of my little circle there. And I'm going to make this what I think the whole length of the head would be. Now, before we go to the next step, let's talk about some drawing practices. Things that I don't want you to do. I don't want you to bear down really hard and make really heavy lines. I don't want you to make scritches just to get one single line. You can do a couple lines over and over again to kind of find the right circle, but I don't want you to go crazy. And I don't want you to press too hard and immediately go for drawing details before you build up all your other steps. Lastly, I don't want you to use your wrist. We're going to draw with our whole shoulder and try to make big long strokes rather than short tiny strokes with our wrist. I'm saving you a trip to the doctor for carpal tunnel. Your shoulder has a lot more ability to move. It's stronger, you have a better range of motion, and once you train yourself to draw with your shoulder, you'll have better control. Right now you will not, and that's okay. Let yourself be uncomfortable. This should not be a comfortable process. We're also going to work from light and slowly get darker over time. All right. So once I have my axes there, I'm going to go around and start making some light hash marks to just figure out where things go. And I'm going to do that by looking at myself in the mirror and being like, okay, so if my eyes are here, this is my eye line. I'm going to make, it looks like from the one corner of the eye, there's about like half an eye there, and that's where the side of my head starts. Then my head sets over here. And if I look, it looks like I have a down from my headset. It looks like my shoulders right there. My shoulders right over here as well. And it looks like the bottom of my chin's just a little bit further down, and I have a scoop of my shirt. Here's my headset, my little earphone on the other side. And draw your glasses, draw your headset. Any of these extra things give you something to measure off of. It can help simplify and get your proportions, simplify putting down your proportions and make sure they're correct, because anything you measure off of can help you with measure your features, make sure they're the right size, the right placement, etc. And now I'm going to place some hash marks for the actual features. So I'm going to put little lines down for my eyes there. And I want my eyes to be about one eye length apart. And you can see I'm off on my center axis there. So I'm going to do some erasing. Usually I don't do a lot of erasing. I just draw on top of it. But I want to, these are hash marks, so it's not a big deal if I erase. They're just very, very light. And that's why we're drawing so light. I think the center, I got to figure out why I keep on wanting to put them off center there. There we go. So I is about one eye length apart. There we go. All right. So your mouth and your eyes create an equilateral triangle. The center of the mouth will line up with the center of the eyes and make this cool triangle that's equal on all sides, right? So my mouth's going to go about right here. And I'm going to just draw kind of this trapezoid shape right now for the nose, where I think the nose is placed. But we're not going to do a lot of line work in the nose. The nose is really going to show up through working out the other features. So once I get that down, I'm ready to really start doing observational drawing. So that means I'm going to look at myself in the mirror 80 to 90% of the time. So it will be interesting to see if I stay true to that. Y'all have me on webcam looking at myself. So it's going to be interesting if you see me looking down more, which I shouldn't do, if you see me looking straight ahead more. But once I get to this point, I'm actually going to go ahead and start shading. I'm not going to put down line work for the edge of the face. The edge of the face is going to show up through shading. For example, I have this hair framing my face, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start turning my pencil to the side. So I'm like holding it like this and using the side of my pencil. And I'm very lightly pressing down. That's key. That is key. You want as light pressure as possible. You'll build up darker shadows or darker values, because value is light or dark, by pressing down a little harder or going over the same area over and over again. So we're going to keep it light first. And so I'm looking at the shapes of the hair, and sometimes I'll draw like big, loose, simple shapes like triangles or circles to just kind of get the feeling of that hair or shape or feature, whatever it is I'm drawing. I'm just using the side of my pencil, blocking it in, and this will help me figure out the edge of my face there. And right now I have earrings on. Those earrings are great to measure off of. Another thing you can do is shade the background. So I have this chair behind me, right? So I can use that to kind of help ground the drawing and use it as a measuring point. It's hard to believe that blocking in this little chair in the background will help me make more realistic eyes. But it does, because you're not falling back on your symbol system of, hey, this is what an eye looks like. Hey, this is what something else looks like. I'm sticking to abstract forms and other subjects in the scene that will help define where those features go. And we'll get more on how to draw hair when we're actually drawing hair. Right now we're just blocking in some shading. Okay. So now it's time to start blocking in some values in the actual body. So I'm going to start by doing this shadow underneath the chin. There's always a shadow underneath your chin, and it's going to define the bottom of the jaw. So just by putting a light shadow there, never having to put line down, you can make the bottom of the jaw appear. I'm going to shade underneath the bottom lip because the bottom lip pops out. So therefore it's blocking the light because it's coming forward. Things that come forward or are convex are usually going to catch light and be lighter. Things that go in or are concave are usually going to be in shadow. So since underneath the lip is concave, that would be shaded. Since the bottom lip pops out, it would be light. The top lip, I have to close my mouth for a second as I draw it, so I'll say this and then close my mouth for a second. The top lip is concave. It's going down into your lip line. So that means your top lip is usually in shadow. Try not to connect the corners of the mouth, and definitely do not put a heavy outline around your lips. So I'm going to shade that upper lip. A lot of the likeness is in the line of the mouth. So while I'm shading these lips, I'm going to look and see what they look like when pressed together to help get my likeness and determine some of my sizes. That trapezoid for the nose goes in, right? Like if we look at a nose in profile, you can tell that this part is going down into the face, right? So that's going to be in shadow. But there's this little circle around there called the ball of your nose that is convex, so it's going to catch the light. For now, we're just going to worry about that part that's concave, and we are going to draw just really light lines that just represents the size of the nostrils. And I can shade around the nostrils just a little bit if I want to. We're not going to get into the eyes yet. We are going to get into the eye sockets. So the eye is an interesting one. The eyeball is convex, right? It's rounded. But then the eye socket is concave. So the eyes are really complicated because you have shading, highlight, highlight, and shading again because you're going from concave, convex, concave. So by just finding the areas that are in shadow around our eyeballs can help determine the size and shape of our eyes. It also defines the nose. If you're looking in yourself in the mirror, you can see that your eyes curve right before the bridge of your nose. So if we shade in the eye sockets where we see those darkest shadows, that will help both define what the nose looks like and what the eyes look like. I'm just going to put some hash marks in there for my eyebrows because that helps me determine the size as well of my eye sockets. So one thing in value is that, or light and dark, one side of the face is usually in light and one side of the face is usually in shadow because light is directional. So light could come this way, and then I would have light areas on this side of the face and dark areas on this side of the face, right? Now, that being said, you have all these different planes on your face. Like your face isn't perfectly smooth. The bridge of your nose pops out, and that's a plane. You have a circle on the tip of your nose. Your nostrils have several different planes. You have another plane for the side of your nose. That little cheekbone has a plane. The side of your cheekbone has a plane, etc. And if you look at your face real close, you can start to see all these different places where there's a little shift. Hint, if you have laugh lines around your face or anything like that, that usually indicates a planal shift. So anytime you have a shift like that, it's going to affect the light differently. So we can keep our concave convex theory in mind, but we're also going to keep in mind the light's coming from a certain direction, and that's going to create light and shadows as well. So I have this kind of backlighting going on and some lighting on the left side of my face. So I'm going to lightly just put a whole big value on the right side of my face, which will immediately create more dimension. Now I'm not going into the eyes yet. I'm just going to take some time to kind of fill in some of my darker values and develop them. You'll find that a lot more of the face will slowly emerge, and then we'll get to the eyes. And the way you do this is finding the values on the face just by looking at yourself. Try to find where it's dark and where it's light. And very lightly press your pencil in small circular motions to get your shading. All right, so you can see I established more of my values. I really should get a little bit more of the headset in there, but I can leave details that aren't as important a little bit unfinished. It actually adds a little bit of flair to the drawing, and it reminds people, hey, this is a drawing, not a photograph, and there should be a difference. If people just wanted a perfect likeness, they can go get a photograph. Photographs changed the art world forever. But I want to talk about some of the things that I did. So one thing that I did was I blocked in the nose and I did some shading for the nose. And I want to talk about how I shaded that. So we already talked about this little trapezoidal shape underneath the nose, right? Well, there's also the ball of your nose, and that catches light. So you can kind of shade that where it recedes and leave the tip of the nose and highlight. I shaded around underneath the nostrils and maybe on the side a little bit depending on where the light is directing. And I shaded a little bit around the bridge and left the bridge mostly light so it just appears. And you may be tempted to draw a line right here because we see a line there as human beings because we understand that's a planal shift. This plane is going this way and this plane is going that way. We interpret a line just through difference of value, but if we put hard outlines on the nose, it would look really weird because that's not how the light is actually interacting. So when in doubt, if you're having a lot of trouble drawing really complex objects like the nose, just let lines be difference in value. Don't actually draw the lines. You can also see that I haven't erased a lot of my underdrawing. I'll do that towards the end, but I'm going to keep it there as long as possible. And you'll find, especially if you're drawing in paper, you're slowly going to start smudging the page with your hand. That will kind of get rid of some of that underdrawing. Make it lighter and it will slowly become part of the drawing. Before we get to the eyes, I just want to check something. So I'm doing this on an iPad, which gives me the benefit of flipping my canvas. So let's flip my canvas, and that's going to immediately show us what's wrong. So it looks like my mouth is okay. It's a little off center, but I'm not too upset about that. I may want to fix the width of, oh gosh, I don't even know what you call that little curve under the nose. The little curve of the lip under the nose. And it looks like my eye is a little off. It looks like it should really be about here. And this eyebrow should come down here. Now, if I was working on paper and pencil and I couldn't flip my canvas like that, all I have to do is go in the bathroom and look at my piece in the mirror. The downside is you can see here I'm able to edit my drawing a little bit while it's flipped to correct it. You can't do that with paper and pencil. You'll have to immediately go back to what it looks like right side up. And that's okay because you're just starting out. I'm able to correct it from here without having the correct view in my self-portrait mirror because I've drawn so many self-portraits it's not even funny. But you don't know human proportions yet. So you don't want to correct yourself without actually understanding what the human body looks like. You want to rely on your reference. You want to look at yourself and figure it out. So unless if you have some experience, I wouldn't edit in flip mode until you get that experience. So I'm going to flip it back. And you can tell just the little corrections have already helped. One more thing, I just want to shade under the chin a little bit more because I have this little chin. And so it kind of pops out from my jaw a little bit. It's kind of weird. It's really hard to get shading for it without it looking strange. Like that I just made way too dark. So I'm just going to lighten that a little bit by just lightly erasing there. But I have a little bit more of that shadow, which is what I wanted. And some things I made sure of too, the corners of my mouth are going to line up about with the center of my eye. And my nostrils are going to line up with the corners of my eye. Now we've talked so much about eyes, let's actually draw them. So when you draw anime eyes, you're actually drawing the simplified shape language of the eye. And one thing I love about anime eyes that actually they do right, like fixes a mistake that a lot of beginner artists make, is they don't connect the eyes. They remember, hey, there's this little gunk area that happens that has all sorts of complexity, but that complexity isn't important to immediately say, hey, this is an eye. So in anime, we're just going to do the top of the eyelid and the bottom of the eyelid. So anime's doing some smart stuff with the eyes. That's why we love anime eyes. And we're going to kind of do that. We're not going to simplify it the way that anime does, but we are going to draw some very light ovals. And we're going to start to mark in the shape of the eyes. And I want you to really look at how your eyelid interacts with your eye line. So my eyelid kind of droops down a little bit. And that really affects the shape of my eyes. Notice that I'm not connecting them. I'm just getting the general shape. I may have that nice little oval to start out, but I'm just kind of darkening the top of the eye and then darkening the bottom of the eye without connecting the corners. The iris doesn't fill the whole eye. It's just a little curve, and there's usually some white on the eye, either on the bottom or, well, yeah, usually on the bottom. It's not necessarily going to fill the whole eye, and the top of the eye usually cuts out the circle a little bit. Now, I kind of jumped away from the eyes and went to the mouth because I saw that some stuff needed to happen there. And I was just in the mode of the drawing. So I apologize about that. I just got in the mode. So I'm going to go back to the eyes now. And I'm going to find the size of the pupil. I want to make sure the pupil is placed where I'm looking and the iris is placed where I'm looking, which should be dead ahead, right? And I'm going to do another flip because something doesn't quite look right. I think I just don't look right when I frown, but it does look like something's wrong with the eyes, and I can see it there. So I have to decide real fast what I want to fix. So I'm going to move the bridge of the nose over. And it looks like I made this corner of the mouth too long. I actually kind of like, this is the eye that's out of place, but I kind of like the shape of it. Looks like it should come down a little bit. Or should this one go up? That's the question. So you kind of have to, I'm going to even it out on both sides and make this one come up a little bit. And you have to be real, if something's not working, you have to be willing to get rid of it at any time. So if this eye isn't working, or if that mouth, which I'm about to hardcore redo in a little bit, isn't working, I need to rework it. I need to redo it. And I just accept that. And I don't cry over it. I just do it. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And yes, there is a wrong in art, contrary to what your kindergarten teacher told you. Your kindergarten teacher lied to you. I know it's hard, but we must accept that before we move on. So let's talk about shading the irises a little bit. So your upper eyelid is overlapping the top of your eyeball there. So one, there's going to be shading represent the eyeball. And 2, your iris is going to be in shadow in the upper part of your eye, and then it's going to fade to a lighter part. But your eye's semi-translucent, so it has this kind of jewel lighting to it. So what we can do, I'm going to take either my eraser, or I may even want to use a white pencil if I'm working on a gray background, is just take my eraser and lightly paint it. So that way I'm not committing to it yet. I'm just lightly suggesting what I think those highlights would look like, just so I'm further understanding the shape of the eye. And the problem is, the reason I'm waiting to the end to do this is because people want to go and do this immediately, because this is fun. Drawing eyes is fun. But you have to eat your vegetables before you can have dessert. We're not going to draw eyelashes yet. We'll draw eyelashes way later. I switched to a kind of lighter gray, and I'm really digging it. It's giving it more of that graphite look. Don't forget the other eye. We don't want one good eye and one wackadoodle eye. I'm going to start some more shading around that area too, like my temple has a little bit of shading on it. I made a little bit too much forehead. And let's start talking about hair while I'm here. So people ask me, Ryan, how do you draw hair? The way you draw hair is you figure out what the flow is and what clumps you have. So like I have a big clump here, right? And you don't want to draw every strand of hair. So you're going to shade some of it like it's a group. But then you'll add a couple of lines, and every once in a while one of those lines should go kind of across or against the flow to give it that linear texture that hair has. If you want to draw curly or more natural hair, you make little curls with the side of your pencil, but they're still in clumps, so you have to organize it. So once you get to this point, you got to just spend some time. Hey, is that correct? Hey, do I need more value there? Hey, do I need to erase that? Hey. And just focus on, this is what I look like in the mirror. I need to make the drawing look the right way. So I'm just going to work on this for a little bit. You'll find that I will flip my canvas often. But I'll just play some music, and we're just going to work on our drawing a little bit and get everything going. All right, so I'm at a point where I'm really close. I still have some darks to add, but I want to think about some reflected light. This is light that's bouncing off from the ambient, like the walls. It's the ambient light in the room, or it may be light from a secondary light source. And I'm going to do that with my eraser by erasing away some of the graphite. So on the shadow side, I have the secondary light source creeping in. Right along here. even catches on the edge of the lip there. It catches underneath the eye. Above the eyebrow, which I still need to work on my eyebrows. And what we do, where you have that light right up against it, will shade the background. That will recreate the edge. Always recommend at least putting some value down in the background. You don't just want to leave it blank. And it can be kind of scritchier, and you can do cool scribbles and things like that. Since I did this kind of instruction on the side, I'm just going to kind of smudge it real fast. If you're working in graphite though, please do not smudge your graphite on purpose. It just muddies up all your value. But I'm just using what's already there so I don't have to spend time meticulously erasing these little instructions I did on the side. So like I was saying before we lost our screen there, this little side lighting that's coming from behind is called a rim light. We're going to get our eyebrows in there. I have these kind of villainous eyebrows, these like really big, dark, branching eyebrows. I have to say, like, you know, it's really hard doing self-portraits because you're looking at all these features in your life that you have, and you're criticizing yourself. But every once in a while, you're like, yeah, this is a feature I like about myself. And I do love my eyebrows. They make great impact in my drawings too. That's probably my favorite facial feature is my eyebrows on my face. And last but definitely not least, we're going to add that white pencil I was talking about earlier. We're going to add it to a couple of places. Now you want it to be in the same location for both eyes. That's really important. Because otherwise it will make you look cross-eyed. I'm going to put it on the nose as well. And I'm actually going to put it like right underneath the nostril with that planal change on the light side. It really makes it feel 3D. And you can put a little bit on top of the upper lip where it is convex rather than concave to kind of help that pop out. A little bit on the chin. On the eyelid. And sometimes I have a tendency to go a little crazy with the white pencil because it's my favorite part. Don't be like me. Don't go crazy with the white pencil. can see I'm adding that rim light too. Flip it one more time. Yeah, I definitely need to fix this situation right here. Maybe add just a little. Oh, I see the problem. There's shading right here. The rim light doesn't go down that far. I think that fixed it. Let's flip it again. Still a little weirdness here. I think that fixed that. Yes, I can add some eyelashes. Finally, the best part. For those bottom eyelashes, don't do them directly on the eyeline. Maybe do them just a little over to kind of give this illusion of a ridge there. And this kind of stylizes it a little bit, which I always like. And we have a self-portrait. One thing you may have noticed that I zoom out a lot. So take a step back from your artwork, whether it's your iPad, your Cintiq, or your pencil. Don't feel bad if your first portrait doesn't turn out the way you want. You can always do this multiple times. And I will see you in the next video where we're going to be talking about light and value and color. We're going to be hanging out with some spheres.